Segregation, a mark upon our country. Segregation, a thing of the past, ended during the Civil Rights Movement. If I told you that segregation was still alive and well, would you believe me? I guess it depends on a myriad of factors. Perhaps I should just get into what I'm getting at. Segregation never truly ended. Not everywhere. Why do I say this and how do I prove it? Well, I'll tell you. To do so, I gotta go back a little bit in history. To the good old 1930s, when the Great Depression was in full swing. Many Americans were going homeless. The government wanted to solve this problem. So, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, was created. Then, in 1934, the National Housing Act was signed into law. This established the Federal Housing Administration, or FHA. Together, these two were meant to help give Americans better housing. And they largely did their job. Many Americans got better housing. There was just one problem. Most of these many Americans were white, leaving out a huge chunk of minorities. How and why? Well, I've got one word to answer that for you. Redlining. Over 200 maps of cities were drawn up by the HOLC to lay out which places were best to approve mortgages in and which places weren't. There were 4 different classifications, sorted in letters and colors. A. Green. Great. B. Blue. Good enough. C. Yellow. Declining. D. Red. Nope. And it just so happened that a lot of the areas redlined were majority minority areas. Now, before you go, oh, no, this was no accident. For proof of that, you only need to look at the FHA documents themselves. Redlining would have many immediate and long-term consequences. Many people in redlined areas found it nearly impossible to purchase any good properties. And a large percentage of the places redlined were inner-city neighborhoods. The remaining whites fled to the suburbs, something which has come to be known as white flight. So then, what happened to areas with racially mixed populations? Well, let's use Detroit as an example. Late 1930s, whites had recently settled near a black enclave. Both groups wanted FHA insurance. Neither could get it though because of the, quote, proximity of an inharmonious racial group, quote. So someone decided to build a wall. They took one glance, thought it looked beautiful, redlined the black section, and called it a day. Eventually, people started to realize that this redlining stuff couldn't fly forever. Starting in 1966, Congress began to consider a bill called the Fair Housing Act. But as is Congress's nature, they couldn't agree on anything and the bill remained unsigned.
Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis,
that is,
Tennessee.
Until 1968. The assassination of Martin Luther King started riots that spread throughout the country. Just 7 days after King's assassination, the Fair Housing Act was signed into law. Okay, so what did this bill actually do? Well, according to HUD.gov, and I quote, "The Fair Housing Act protects people from discrimination when they are renting or buying a home, seeking housing assistance, or engaging in any other housing-related activities." So how does this all affect good old Louisville, Kentucky? Well, see this map? See 9th Street? Okay, look to the east of that. Now to the west. What do you see? What's different about these two places? I'll give you a moment. See the lack of stuff in the western half? See all those buildings, skyscrapers, and everything else in the east? Check this out. It's a map of people being denied loans in different areas. Once more, compare the west to the east. Yeah, pretty big difference. Redlining isn't something of the past. It's something that's still affecting millions of people in the present. Get this. 3 out of 4 neighborhoods redlined on those crusty old maps are still low to moderate income today. The segregation caused by redlining has often made it so people of different ethnicities aren't exposed to each other. People on all sides are not learning the value of difference, rather that be different people or different ideas. Sometimes this allows old attitudes to prevail where they should not. Because minorities were trapped in lower income areas, they could not accumulate the same wealth as whites. And over time, this has created a still growing wealth gap. On average, white families have 10 times as much as black families, and 8 times as much as Hispanic families. And that number is only projected to grow. Because of redlining, many schools are still segregated. Neighborhoods that have been redlined tend to be much more heavily policed than those that have not, creating all sorts of problems. The amount of today's issues that can be traced back to redlining is honestly staggering. And until we as a country realize redlining's effects, there's only so much we can do. Speaking of which, solutions. A good start would be to spread awareness about redlining and its effects. We must be educated about these issues. It is a topic vital to understanding why the United States is the way it is today. Schools should have redlining included as part of their curriculum. One problem that plagues many of these redlined areas is a higher rate of crime. Our theory is that this is largely due to there not being very many adequate jobs available to people in these areas. We think that once more people start getting jobs in these areas, crime rate should go down. And hopefully this will have the effect of making people less scared to live in these areas. I'm pretty sure a lot of us know that one person who avoids the West End like they would a war zone. Hopefully, as more jobs and opportunities open up, this will attract a more diverse population. It is our hope that moves like this will over time create a stronger sense of equality, paving a path to eliminating the remaining effects of redlining. This won't be easy. But if everyone contributes, educators, the communities, people who once did not know, and everyone between, maybe we'll get somewhere. We can't let ignorance stop us from fixing what has been broken. The first step has already begun. It began the second you started watching this video. Spread the word if you can. Without awareness, there can be no dialogue. Without dialogue, there can be no fixes.